continue. Hi, how you doing? Here again. Welcome to Fundestein. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, I am Janis Isman, and I am the founder of My Body Couture. So, what I do is help people feel better in their bodies. And I love what
Bye
I do
bye.
because everybody who comes to see me ends up being so happy and they feel better in their body. So, I have a really feel good job where I help people eradicate aches and pains and kind of things that are making their life and their quality of life lesser, and then we just get rid of those and they go on to be able to do the things that they want to accomplish in life.
And how do you? What inspired you to start that kind of business?
Like a lot of entrepreneurs, I basically started the kind of business I wish had existed for me. I had a knee injury and I went to chiropractors and acupuncturists and sports doctors and the doctor and a rolfer and you name it, I went. And basically, I found that I would get relief from each of these techniques and practitioners because they're good practitioners and techniques. But then I would continue with my movements and continue with my life, and then it would come back. And so there's a lengthy gap between that experience in my life and actually opening my business. It was about 15 years. But in the meantime, I really wanted to solve this for myself. And so it really came from that place of internal passion and internal drive to figure out my own scenario. And by the time I did that, I really realized I was passionate about helping other people have that experience.
That's wonderful. You saw a need. You wanted something that wasn't available for you, and you started. You figured out how to make it happen. So
That's
I'm so
exactly.
glad.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad too. It was life changing and it was a lot of little micro decisions that I didn't think were going to land me on an entrepreneurial path. But when I look back on it, because I moved down a different career pathway, I had space and time and a separate income so that I could do training and I could work with clients as kind of, we call it a side hustle now. Back in the day, it was just kind of doing something that you loved. I was able to invest in equipment. I was able to take the time and experiment with my own body. I was able to experiment with other people I knew. I was able to do that all without having kind of that pressure of I've got to make $100,000 a year. I've got to pay my rent. I was doing it because I really was passionate and curious and interested. And I think that if I look back on it, that was actually the perfect way to start that business because it is a unique business. It's not like I just went and took a training and then opened a business doing something that kind of already existed. So it allowed me to have time that I probably wouldn't have had if I had made a really conscious career shift.
So when it's a unique business, how do you start it? It wasn't there before.
It wasn't there before. No.
So how do you figure it out? Do you compare similar business and see what's working with them and kind of
That's a good question. And I have a terrible answer to that. So this actually is my second business. And my first business was not successful because I have a business degree. And one of the things that I learned how to do in my business degree was to write a business plan. And we've all been told over and over how important the business plan is. And I spent so much time in my first business trying to perfect and organize and get that business plan in a place that was exactly what I wanted. And every time I changed my mind or changed direction, the first thing I would do is go back to the business plan, rewrite it, edit, do all of this stuff. And I actually didn't get the business successfully off the ground because I was always in planning mode and not enough in execution mode. So one answer that I have for you is that I opened a business literally without a business plan. So I'm self-financed, which means I basically took money from my own savings and I opened my business. I signed a lease, I
Right.
paid for everything that needed to be paid for. And so I actually didn't need a business plan to take to a bank, to take to any government body. There was no reason to actually have kind of a structured business plan. So that was one thing, is I didn't have any pressure to kind of say, oh, here's the competitive set. You know, I didn't need a SWOT analysis. I didn't need any of that stuff. So I had a kind of business plan in my head, but because of my previous experience, I literally didn't even write it down. And so actually about it, within a short window of me moving or me opening the business, I actually moved to a new city. And I did something else that I don't think a lot of business coaches would necessarily recommend. I did not do a price analysis of the market, but instead I actually drew on my, at that point, it was 6 years of experience working with clients. And I had just done experimenting to see what actually works. So, you know, I would try, here's a 3 sessions for $99 intro package. And then I would bump the rate up and kind of see what happened. I tried a $75 price point and a $99 price point and a $125 price point and a $150 price point. And so over those years, when I actually had a corporate job and I wasn't attached to the outcome of my income hinges on this, I had actually played with, in an experimental style, what price points worked. So I guess by the time I opened my business, I didn't need to kind of go through all of that. And I also didn't need to do a whole bunch of competitive set writing things down. So I guess the answer is, it was experimenting by having this kind of job as a side hustle. And by the time I opened the business, I had enough information and confidence to create a business out of nothing that wasn't really, you know, there isn't a ton of direct competitors to me, because I had tested the market organically.
And that's so, you know, so important out of everything that you say, and you say so many good points. First, you self-finance, so that allow you the flexibility of testing things without being rushed, without being pressured. Then you keep on testing while you had the financial backup of, you know, your corporate job, until you were comfortable enough to do it full time.
Correct.
And you keep trying and testing. That's amazing.
And I can't speak highly enough about that.
So even
experience, because I think that a lot of entrepreneurs want to be entrepreneurs, and I've always had an entrepreneurial personality. I grew up with entrepreneur parents, but I think that I was able to take away lessons from that corporate experience, and then also be able to have no pressure to start that business where my income didn't rely on it, because I would have made different decisions.
Yes, because you have to set your own pace at the beginning, you know, and when you don't know what you don't know, you have to figure it out.
Yeah. And I think it actually takes a long time. So my business is, I think, 8 years old, seems like the right answer. And I talk about it now like a child. So when we have a brand new business, when we have a 2-year-old business, it is like a toddler. It goes everywhere. It runs off in a corner if you take your eye off it. And then you have to chase it back and wrangle it in. And you also, in those early phases, just like a toddler, you actually have to be present with it all the time. And so I think that I did some of that work while I had the safety of a corporate partner, as opposed to now I have no income and my business is running off into the corner. But I think that we don't often talk a lot about how long it actually takes for that business to kind of calm down and mature. And it's not a year, it's not 2 years, it's not 3 years. You know, there is something, I thought there was something magical about that kind of 6-year mark, where I'm like, okay, it's a little settled into something I can predict a little bit more.
Well, that's what they say, that most business fail on the first year. And if they make it to the 5-year mark, That's a milestone. That's a huge milestone,
It's
because that
huge.
means they're in it. They're in it for the win, and you want to get to 1,000 years mark. That's kind of hard, but it can be happen. It can happen. It just takes planning and constantly testing, and you can settle, because even when you're successful, you still have to keep adjusting your
Absolutely.
strategy.
Oh, absolutely. And for every entrepreneur who has had a business through the COVID period, that is an understatement beyond understatements. All of us have had to retest absolutely every single thing that exists in our business. There is absolutely no condition which has been left unchanged. And so just when you kind of think, even if you are where I am, where you were at the 7-8 year mark, that you're kind of settled in, away goes something else. So I think there's never really a moment when you can just sit back and I laugh because I think sometimes entrepreneurship, when I mention I'm an entrepreneur, people's most common reaction is, oh, wow, that must be nice to just get to manage your own schedule and kind of have free time. I'm like, interesting. It's not a trip to the beach where I'm sitting in the hammock and just raking in money. Sadly.
No, it's not.
No, and I think it's definitely kind of having a child where you're constantly evolving with it and constantly making different decisions based on the maturity of the business and the conditions that are around. And I mean, I say that because I have a child that's basically exactly the same age as my business, and I'm like, oh, you two are growing up together.
Yeah. Well, it's a 24-hour job, no
Yes,
vacations.
correct.
Because if you take vacations, you're not getting paid.
That's right.
So,
That's right. No, exactly. Yeah.
So it's not it's something that you have to like. Whatever you choose to do, you have to really be passionate about. Otherwise, you're not going to last,
I
because you're not
laugh
getting paid
because
enough.
I'm like, yeah, other people have hobbies where they, follow sports teams or they are really into art. I love posting on Instagram and creating marketing materials. But you have to feel that way about your business. You have to have that sense of personal passion to that extent. I think we froze.
Yes. So find what light you up, right?
Yeah.
So
And you have to
keep
be,
you in the game.
I think to be a really great entrepreneur, you have to be lit up not only by the execution and the tactical thing that you sell for a living, but you have to be lit up by one of, marketing, sales, accounting, cleaning, admin. You have to actually have something that is working on the business that you also feel that passionately about, that you would also do for free, because guess what? You're going to do it for free. And so if the only thing that I liked was actually working with clients, I wouldn't be in business today. I love marketing and sales, and that keeps my business going. I could be really good at accounting. That could keep my business going. But just executing the service, I would not be in business right now. Even though I'm good at what I do. I think that you have to have a passion that relates to actually owning the business itself.
Yes, and you kind of have to know. You have to learn how to know a little bit of everything, because you are, especially in the beginning, you are everything on the business. You are the business.
Yeah.
Until you get to a point where you can start outsourcing some of the help, some of the tasks. And I would definitely start with the stuff that you don't like to do.
Yeah.
And ensure that that's the case for you as well.
But I think outsourcing is difficult because it is expensive and nobody cares about your business the way that you do. So I think there are some things that are easier to outsource. Like, I'm just going to use my business as an example. I can outsource cleaning with, you know, somebody else is actually going to do it better than I am. I can outsource accounting. But when it comes to marketing and sales, that's my voice and my brand and my appearance. And I'm a really small business. So it really all directs back to me, where somebody has to like my personality. And so I have had experiences where I've outsourced it and it just doesn't work. So I think that outsourcing actually also takes a lot of management. It takes a lot of time. It takes energy. It takes selecting the right people. And that's a whole other skill set in and of itself right there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not easy because you have to be very clear on what you want to get done, and don't expect perfection because nobody's going to do it the way that you do it.
Yeah, because
You
no
know.
one else is attached to the outcome the way that you are. And that's a difficult reality, but it's just true. So other people are not as emotionally or physically or financially invested in your business.
That's true. So what projects are you working right now? What are you
Well,
have
actually,
going on?
I'm really lucky because when I hit the 5-year mark of my business, I was really struggling with staff. So I hired great people that to this day I have a relationship with, I keep in touch with. They're professional colleagues. I have a great deal of admiration for them as human beings. But I did not enjoy the experience of managing staff. I was not good at it. And I found it really emotionally taxing in ways that I did not want to take on. And so the only way for me to grow my business was actually then to diversify. And so at that time, which was a couple of years ago, I took on product sales and I took on writing and I took on doing digital work. And especially the digital work became a huge asset in 2020. But for me, those business units are still young. They're still only a couple of years old. I had them all in place when COVID sort of rolled over North America. And so for that, I'm just grateful beyond, because I already had those diversified income sources. But at this time, I'm not looking to sort of do a major business model shift. So I'm working on the same projects I have been for the last couple of years. I'm working on developing content and through speaking and writing. I'm working on making a more robust, mature digital content platform that consumers can access with ease. And then I'm working on my product sales and my core business, which is now older than the other ones. So there isn't a lot of exciting new launches because I have kind of 3 business units that still are, running off into the corner without that attention.
For like the spanning little arms all over the place, so that's good. And you want to be diversified as a business, because if one arm dries up, you still got something else um to fall back on. They say that you should at least get 7 string of income, but you have to
I
work to the
think
7s
I
in
never
personal. Yeah.
I never ever realized how important that was until 2020, because had I not had those diversified income sources, I can't confidently say that I would actually have made it through with an intact business. But the other business units functioned almost in reverse correlation. So the more lockdown we were, the more my digital business grew. The more the lockdowns happened, the less my business was mandated closed. I couldn't see people. So I think that the environment can always be shifting in ways that we don't predict. And without that diversification, I'm not sure that I will never have an undiversified business again. Let me tell you that.
I think that's smart. Like 2020 has been a hard lesson for a lot of people, and it kind of show what the weakness or business were.
Yes.
It had like a huge spotlight on those. So, and even the big corporations that were struggling before, those are the first that went under.
It's true. I thought that was really interesting, actually, because it speaks to the reserves that are available. And one thing I actually did that I think, again, if I was to open another business, I would do exactly the same. But I really started small and didn't take on more than I could chew. I didn't need external financing. I didn't have square footage in my commercial space that was more than I could personally pay for. And again, I think that's why some of those big corporations just sunk under, because when that revenue isn't there, their overhead was so tremendous that they had like a month of runtime, 2 months of runtime. And I had reserves to pay for some of that because my overhead at the end of it is something that I can handle by myself. So I think that we often talk about scaling businesses, and that's most businesses owners' dreams, but we have to start at a place that we can handle. And we actually all do need, I mean, I didn't have one before this year, but we do need catastrophic scenario plans. What does happen when you have zero income and your expenses carry forth? How long do you have? Do you have a month? Do you have a week? Do you have 6 months? You know?
And I think it used to be the standard used to be 3 months that you need a reserve.
Yeah.
Now it's about 6, and sometimes 6 is not even enough.
Yeah, I know different jurisdictions in North America handled the COVID closures differently, but as we're recording this interview, my business, my bricks and mortar business, is closed right now. So I've been closed 2 times, and you know, if I had only had a 3-month reserve, I would be out of business by now. So because when you add up the amount of time I've been closed, it's been significantly longer than 3 months. So I think that we all probably need to look at what our plans are and how much that reserve actually is.
So what one thing that you think you would have known 2020 what's going to happen, you would have done bit different in your business?
That's a good question. I think 2 things. I'm going to give 2 answers to that, actually. So one of the weaknesses that I learned was that I cannot work 15 to 18-hour days and just do it for months and months and months, because eventually I had 2 periods where I just like hit the floor and I was out for the count. And so building in better planning for my own self-care, self-preservation, self-longevity, because without me, that business can't operate. So I'm my own weakness. And the second thing is, had I been given a heads up, I mean, I started working on a digital plan in 2018, and it was a difficult execution. There was tons of problems. It was hard to actually get it out the door. It got finished in, I don't know, March or April of 2020. And I really wish that had actually been out the door in October of 2019. So I think that I would have actually just put a little bit more focus into that secondary business unit and fought through those problems a little bit more fervently than I actually did, because I felt really that wherever we were, the day that our jurisdictions announced that we were not allowed to conduct business, we were stuck with whatever, wherever we were. You know, you couldn't add experience, you couldn't add new business units, you couldn't add money. It just was what it was. So I just, you know, I would have gone backwards a year and just sort of, okay, we're going to do this digital thing. So that there was already kind of that more experienced revenue flow coming from there.
And that's still good. You know, you were able to adapt and launch on March of 2020. That's still very quick. A lot of people just now are launching.
I was going to
and
say,
adapting.
I'm seeing it happening now. I mean, I had digital services to clients in 3 hours. So it was really quick. And that's because I had fiddled with the camera. I had experience talking into the camera. I had already instructed, I had already offered services digitally. But I think that some of the back end stuff wasn't in place. And so that's where all that,
Right.
it's a minor wish, but it would have made my personal burnout feel less because that would have already been done.
Yes. We can always improve. We can always try to pre-plan, and that's something that 2020 had really teaches, right?
Yeah.
We need to do it. It's no use having the idea. It's actually, start tweaking with it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So what's some? Uh-huh.
Oh, I think that, you mentioned that we should have 7 sources of income. Just building that into your mental, physical, financial plans, because especially if it's a residual income where the income is relatively easy, like you have a big digital project that you just sell over and over again, it takes a long time to actually get the product itself that then takes no effort to sell in place. And so I think that, probably if I was to really go back to day one of my business, I would have just allocated a couple hours a week to that sort of project development that would, you take your 1,000-hour project and you divide it into a year or 2 years or whatever, these things get done. But I think that we don't ever really talk about how much time and effort those things take to get out the door either.
Yes, and that's the groundwork. So that's the one that takes the most, especially when there's a creative component to it, because creativity needs space.
It does. I agree, and I think that as business owners, we often can feel like we're pulled to capacity, but I would probably prioritize that a little bit differently than I did even just from the inception of my business. But these are amazing things to learn going forward, because that's the only place we can go, right?
Yeah. I think, and we still got 2021. Hopefully it's better.
Yeah.
But so we definitely have still time to keep trying new things and keep implementing.
Yes. So for those of us who are still here, we are the lucky ones, right?
What they say, when there's tough time, that's when when business gets stronger, because you will remember for the at least next 10 years, and you will be more cautious and you will have more reserves. So those lessons, and we had a whole 12 months of lessons.
Yes, we did.
Hopefully no longer.
Yeah, that was an endless well of lessons. So, thanks 2020.
But also being a endless time of learning, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, again, different people in North America are in different conditions at the moment. Some of us are still in it, and then other people can kind of look back on that and reflect. And I think that, so there's going to be a lot of evolution of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship in the next 5 years as people kind of emerge from the rubble of 2020. And some of it's negative, some of it's positive, but there are definitely things that I will probably do differently going forward.
Yes, I believe there's going to be so we live in history right now. I think we're going to jump, we transition into something. I don't know yet what it's going to be, but there's going to be so many new things coming up in a couple months. 5 years from now, things have changed.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I thought that actually during difficult historic moments. There was a lot of innovation typically. So I would expect that there's companies that are, in their genesis right now that will change the future of our world, literally.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting to think
Yeah,
about.
it is. It is. Especially because I think that much as 2020 was not an ideal year for so many of us, it really would have been very different without all of the technology that we have had. I was able to do my work online. I was able to meet a ton of new people. We're able to do this podcast from different countries right now. These are things that are going to, I think, just take a little bit of an elevated stance in the world, because without all of this, we would have a very different scenario.
Yeah. Well, we were able to keep some kind of semblance of community, something that's so important for humans, right? Because we still could connect electronically, and people that couldn't do that didn't want to do that before. They had no other choice.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's cool. So what are some nuggets that you would like to share, nuggets of wisdom, that you would recommend to, to somebody that you're starting up, or a book or something that you think they should be looking into?
I think if you're just starting, I mean, I mentioned this already, but start small. You can scale, you can grow, but it's really hard to pull back when you're overextended. And I mean that in every aspect. So overextending your time, your energy, your emotions, your finances, all of it. So many entrepreneurs have really big ambitions, and that's a beautiful thing. But if we go too big, we can burn out, and we can actually extinguish our own business with our own ambition. So start small and grow, because there's no landlord in this country that won't let you expand your lease space. Most of them won't let you shrink it. There's no physical or mental health scenario of overload, burnout, overwhelm that's easy to recover from once you are there. It's easy to stop it, but it's hard to recover from it. And so I think just starting in a place where you can literally handle it. Same thing with debt. If you end up in debt, that debt mounts every month, as opposed to just not going there in the first place. So I'm a really big proponent of taking on the business that you can chew. So really being honest with yourself, financially, emotionally, from a time-wise standpoint, etc., what it is that you can actually manage, because recovery from any failure is way harder than just avoiding the failure. And so that said, it doesn't mean don't be ambitious, but just be honest with what it is that is possible for you.
And for our listeners that want to know more about you and they want to contact you, where they should find you?
My business name is My Body Couture, which is 3 separate words. First word is my, M-Y. Second word is body, B-O-D-Y. Third word is couture, C-O-U-T-U-R-E. So the portal to find all the other things is at the .com. Or you can head straight over to either Facebook or Instagram. I'm on both of those, quite active. You can follow, or you can send me a direct message.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, I really appreciate you being my guest. Um, do you have any parting words that you want to say before we're done? Or?
Well, my core business is helping people feel better in their bodies. So if you have an aching neck or back or knee, or something in your body just feels like it doesn't feel super comfortable, and especially if you're at the place where that's holding you back from living a great life, where exercise might be uncomfortable, or I had a CEO that felt embarrassed when he would get off a plane because he was kind of hobbling. There's a lot of different scenarios, but definitely reach out. We can chat and see if I can help you, because I can serve people anywhere through the world now.
That's amazing. And the technology, you just make a lot of things possible that weren't possible before.
Absolutely.
So, well, it was definitely a pleasure to have you as a guest. You have an open invitation, so anytime,
Thank you so much for
it's a
having
good
me.
time.
It was lovely
All right.
talking to you from your beautiful outdoor space in Florida.
Yes. One of these days we can trade places.
Yes, exactly. Before we started recording, we were talking about how outside my window it's just white wall of snow. So I'm like, I'm jealous right now. Thank you so much. It was lovely to talk to you.
All right. Okay.